collectors, and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we are taking a look at Deluxe Class Infernac Universe Magneous from the Transformers Legacy United line from Hasbro. So you may be asking, what is Infernac Universe? Because I certainly had no idea myself. I looked it up, and apparently it has an association back to Inhumanoids, which was a brand from in the 80s from Hasbro, not nearly as popular as Transformers, but it was kind of these large subterranean creatures, and then there were human soldiers that fought them. It's kind of a neat show. A kind of a short run for the toy line, and only had a few episodes. I think it was like 13 like 10 to 15 minute long episodes, something like that. So it wasn't around very long, but it's kind of become like a cult classic at this point. So apparently the term Infernac comes from an association to the underground world Meltar, which is an Inhumanoids reference. So I'm assuming that's where that comes from. And then kind of just the general look of these guys, they're all rock warriors, which is a nod to the Rock Lords from GoBots. And if you're not familiar with that, GoBots was a kind of competing transforming robot toy in the 80s that was done by Tonka, where they licensed the Machine Robo toys from Bandai in Japan and made them into GoBots. And then kind of to keep the line, fresh towards the end of the run for GoBots, they licensed another line from Bandai, which was these transforming rock toys. They brought them over here and called them Rock Lords. So again, a lot of obscure references here, kind of having some fun with, for children of the 80s who remember all these things. But these guys are kind of serving as the armorizers or weaponizers for the year. And I'm totally down for Rock Lord references, because obviously Transformers was my favorite as a kid, but I had a few GoBots, and they had their charm, and I've kind of come to enjoy the Machine Robo line over the years, especially Machine Robo Rescue, which came out in the early 2000s, which was kind of a refresh of Machine Robo, which led into Mugenbein, which I'm a huge fan of. That's a toy line that I absolutely love. So I do have kind of a certain affection for the Machine Robo toys, and then, by extension, the GoBots. So I didn't have, if I had maybe one Rock Lord as a kid, if I'm trying to remember, I didn't have a ton of GoBots, but I'm all for, referencing some GoBot stuff, Rock Lords. I think that's really cool. The thing that I don't really get is that they turn into like rocky vehicles. Now I understand you don't just want to make a robot that turns into a rock, because it obviously didn't work for Tonka back in the day, probably not going to work here, but making them kind of like rocky vehicles, I think is a weird choice. So we'll see how I feel about this after we get this out and review it, but going into it, I just think it's kind of a weird choice. You can see some artwork here on the front for the vehicle mode. It's kind of a rocky SUV looking thing. We have some artwork here for the robot mode. I think the robot modes look really cool, because like I said, I'm big fans of Rock Warriors. And they also said they drew some inspiration from like one obscure episode of Transformers The Headmasters, which is a Japanese only exclusive series that had they went to one planet with a bunch of Rock Warriors. So they kind of took all of these things and hodgepodged them together and came up with these Infernac Universe Warriors here. So we'll see how it goes. But again, a lot of random things they're drawing on here. Over here on the side, we have the half of the United mural. And if we bring in the box from Chase that I reviewed a few days ago, we can get the full picture here. Now, it is a little weird, and I'll zoom in here a little bit. You can see that it's not perfectly cut down the middle. Windblade has two heads there, two noses here for Magnetron, and things of that nature. But it's a cool group shot. I mean, you got Magnetron looming large here in the center. We got the animated characters over here. We got Megatron using Tidal Wave. He's teased up here. We got Tigerhawk looking fantastic. Core Class Energon Megatron and Tasmanian Kid up there. So it's a cool, mural picture for the year. So I had these two boxes handy. I wanted to go ahead and just show that off since they were the two halves. Over here on the back, we have nice product shots of the robot mode and the vehicle mode. And then, of course, because they're the armorizers, they can come apart and, connect to the other figures in the line. So they're calling them armorizers. They've been called weaponizers in the past, whatever you want to call them, every year for the last few years. So we've had these figures that can kind of disassemble and become weapons and armor and things for the other figures. So a play pattern that they have kept around for quite some time now. But that's going to do it for the packaging. I am going to go ahead. I guess I didn't show off, but up here is just the Legacy United. And it is made of that more solid cardboard, just like Chase was, which I think is kind of cool. Keeps a little bit more solidity A little bit more protection since they're not doing the plastic window anymore. It's nice that the packaging is pretty solid. So gonna go ahead and get Magneous out of the packaging here, and we'll take a closer look. So here is Magneous out of the packaging. I think the robot mode looks very cool. I will say that the color scheme is very one note. I mean, there's like a couple different shades of gray, but when you look at it real quick, it's basically just this really dark gray color, and there's not really too much else going on here. The head sculpt is pretty cool. I like the bright yellow eyes. I think that really helps. They really pop against all of the other darker colors. So I like that quite a bit. I kind of like how he has the wheels here on the chest. I think that's kind of neat. Comes with this axe weapon. I'm just going to go ahead and take this out of his hand for now. He also technically has this section here, which you can take off and is meant to be used as a shield. If you don't want that, you can just store it here on the back. It just pegs in and integrates pretty seamlessly into the robot mode. It's a bit of a backpack, but doesn't really get in the way of articulation at all. So it's kind of nice to store it there. You could also peg the weapon in here if you wanted to store that there instead. So putting those off to the side, articulation-wise, the head can spin from side to side. Technically, it can move up and down a little bit because of this piece for the transformation, but it's not, I don't think it's on a ball joint. No, it really just spins side to side. You have a swivel here at the shoulder, as well as a hinge. You can see the pin right there. Bicep swivel, 90 degrees there in the elbow. Now, the hand is on a ball joint. You can see it right there very obviously, so you can get some movement out of that. But really up here, it's just going to give you a rotation because you can't really move it around, but you can move it to the side because of that, and you do need to do that for transformation. You do have a waist swivel. You have pretty good kick forward in the hip, pretty good kick backward, as well as a kick out to the side. You have a kind of thigh swivel right above the knee. You have a really nice knee rotation there because of the transformation, so that goes full, not quite 180. Well, I guess actually it does 180 for the full transformation, but in robot mode, it kind of kicks up and stops. And then you have ankle tilt down here, as well as some front to back because of the transformation. So he's got pretty good articulation. Now, you might not like the look of these legs here being all hollow, but the nice thing is he's got these panels here on the back of the forearms. And if you want, you can detach those and bring them down here, and you can see that there is a tab right there and right there. And so you just line these up with the two tab slots on the back of these, and then you can go ahead and pop these on. I think I have it backwards, so we'll do it this way. No, I was right the first time. I thought so. And then they'll just peg in right there, or I could shoot it across the room. And then that way it kind of fills in the back of the legs, which I thought was kind of a nice touch. Definitely did not need to do that, but it does fill in the back of the legs. So if you don't like the look of them on the back of the forearms, you can store them down here. Makes the legs look a little bit more fleshed out and kind of cleans up the arms a little bit. So honestly, in the robot mode, I think he's really cool. I like the rock motif. And we can go ahead and give him his weapons. And he can hold on to his shield here. I said he can hold on to his shield here. I promise he can do it. I don't know why it's giving me trouble all of a sudden. There we go. It's not the best way to hold it. I kind of wish he had like something on the forearm that I could peg it into, but technically I could peg it onto the back of the forearm where that other panel just was, but I'd have to kind of turn the arm to the side, which can look a little goofy. I mean, you can rotate the fist if that helps, but then he's kind of got like a weird elbow joint. So up to you. You can do a couple different things there with the shield. So you have some options there. Also, because it is a armorizer, I mean, the arms just unpeg. So you can, if you want to pretend he lost an arm in a fight or something like that, you could totally do that. I believe the legs pop off somehow. Do they pop off here? I'll have to look at the packaging again. I'm not a huge fan of taking these apart as armor, but of course you can do it. And the nice thing is you don't have to take anything apart to transform it. A lot of the early weaponizers you had to disassemble and then kind of assemble into the vehicle. You can completely do the transformation without taking anything off. I mean, maybe take the weapons off, I think you could even leave this on here, honestly. Let's go ahead and leave that on there. And just to show that does not hinder the waist articulation at all, which is nice. So yeah, he looks pretty cool. Definitely, you know, one note in terms of color scheme, but other than that, I think he's a pretty cool little rock dude. So we'll go ahead and we'll get into the transformation. Alright, so we're going to start by unhooking the shoulders, and I'll take the arm off just to show you what I mean. So you want to kind of unhook this because this section here, there's a tab underneath. And let me zoom in so you can see it. Focus, maybe? There we go. So you're popping this on to that tab right there. So you just want to unhook it. Now, it's not going to like completely flip out, because if you come over here, you can see that there's really no room for it to do so. So don't try to pull this like at a full 90 degrees. That's not going to happen. You just want enough clearance to unhook that. And sometimes I find it's easier to take the arms off to do that. You don't necessarily have to. If you can kind of, but it's hard to kind of grab a hold of that when you're pulling on this because it's not super connected in. So it's up to you. You can take them off, you can leave it off. But once you do that, you want to kind of bring this forward, and then this whole section here will lift up. And also you can see that there's kind of a bend here. So this was kind of at a 45-degree angle. So you want to straighten that out, as well as bring this all the way up. And you can see how that just kind of all sits flush with that, which is pretty cool. So let me zoom out here, and let me put the arms back on. There we go. Now we're going to take these two sections and flip them out to the side. And you can see that there's a little tab right there, and there is a tab slot. Let me zoom back in. It's kind of hard to see, but there is a tab slot on the inside here. Can I get some light in there so you can see it? Yeah, there you go. So that tab slot right there is going to tab onto that. And it's pretty easy to do as you bring it around. Now, you also might want to watch out for this piece here sometimes. I just kind of move that out of the way. And then as you bring this up, you'll feel it click into place. So bring this one up. Click that into place as well. Zoom back out. At this point, this whole head assembly that I was pointing out earlier will rotate around and click into place, and you can see how that just kind of fills out this assembly here really nicely. At this point, we're going to tuck the arms in, so we're going to kind of straighten this out, and then you want to bring the hand in, and then this is going to, again, you have to make sure you rotate it a little forward for this piece, because otherwise that's going to hit in. I mean, it doesn't always, but I find it sometimes it's just a little easier to move this down, bring this in, and then you want to take the hand and just rotate it so that the back of the hand that has this kind of flush area here will fill in. So when this comes in, that's going to go like that. And then you want to push that in. There's a little tab. You can see it right there. I don't know that mine's actually connecting to that. It doesn't like need to super snugly connect in there. It just needs to go in there. So we're going to do the same thing over here. Bring this in, and then rotate it 90 degrees, and then situate that in there. There you go. Now that's all set. The next part is really easy. If you have these down here, you have to remove them. So pop these out like so. Also, I find it's easier to have these off when you're transforming the arms, because these have little spots that are going to connect on top of this to kind of keep everything in place. You can kind of see how there's like a little slit right there, and I just find it easier to do that at the end. So straighten out the legs. The feet are going to flip up like this and then compress flat against the shins. So do that again over here. Then we're going to snap the legs together, and they snap together a couple different places. The feet have two connections here, and then back here you got to make sure that this is connected in, and that's kind of really tight. Be careful. I pinched my fingers the first time, so that goes pretty tight there. So at this point, you're just going to rotate this around like so, and that's just going to drop on like that. And then we're going to bring these back in, and these are going to peg in right here. There's a spot for this tab slot to go over this tab. And then also this tiny little tab right there is going to fit into that spot I mentioned earlier. So these just kind of connect on there rather nicely. And there you go. That is the vehicle mode. So here is our rock truck. Rolls fairly decently. That's right, the unofficial Transformers Flintstones collab has finally arrived. Now you can do a couple things with this. You can go ahead and attach the weapon. You can see that there are these 2 pegs on the back of the axe, and they'll peg in right there and there. So you can go ahead and store the weapon on the back, which is nice. I think that looks pretty good. Another cool thing you can do, you can actually, if you come here, you can see that there's kind of a little seam right here. So you want to pop this up. So you're actually taking the shins off. It's not just the feet, it's the shins as well. And this should come off all as one piece if you connected the feet together there. So you can see here that it's actually the shins and the feet. And you can take all that off. And honestly, if you like this look better, you can kind of make it look more like a pickup truck. So it kind of has like an empty bed. So that's another option if you kind of like the look of a pickup truck a little bit better, which is kind of cool. But the other thing you can do is take the weapon off, split these apart, and then you take this, and you can see that there's these large spots right here, and they will peg in here and here. So pop this on, and this one over here, and you kind of make this like giant super axe, and then you can actually plug that into the front of the vehicle and make like a giant kind of cow catcher. So you can just roll around mowing people down, which is kind of cool. I like that. I like that you can form this without taking too much of the vehicle mode apart. And that's just kind of a cool extra weapon configuration. I think that's kind of neat. So that's kind of cool there. I'm going to leave this off to the side because that's going to come into play a little bit later on. But yeah, I mean, again, do I think it's weird that it's a rock truck? Yes. Is it growing on me? Yes. I definitely think the aesthetic is weird, but that doesn't mean it's not a fun toy. I think it looks neat. I think it rolls well. The transformation is simplistic, but not too simplistic. And just overall, it's kind of neat. It's weird. It's definitely out there. I don't know why they did, I mean, I get that you don't want to just make a robot that turns into a rock. That makes sense to me. That's not super exciting. But a vehicle that looks like it's made of rock is also very strange to me. But, like I said, it's kind of growing on me. It's kind of fun. I kind of like it. I also kind of like it with this like pickup truck motif with the little bit more of a bed in the back. So I think that's kind of cool. Alright, so I brought Chase in here to assist me with showing off the Armorizer portion of this guy. So I was correct earlier. The legs do not come off. Basically, this piece can come off. These pieces on the side that we took off earlier can come off. The back wheels can actually come off. So this whole section here can unpeg. It's a little difficult, but there we go. And then, of course, you can take the arms off. So if you take these back out, which can be a little bit harder to do when it's in vehicle mode, but we can unpeg these, and then we'll just push this back in, and then just unpeg that. And then this whole section stays together. So it's a little weird. But this actually does not come apart. So the legs don't come off, the waist doesn't disconnect, nothing like that. So for me, I kind of like to leave these on. So that way at least it still has 4 wheels. And then if you want, you could still kind of use this as maybe like a sled or a surfboard or something. Maybe have the figure stand on it, something like that. I kind of just leave the arms in too, though, I'll be honest. I mean, you could do whatever you want with these if you wanted to connect these, like have this peg on over here. I've seen some of the directions peg these on and maybe attach weapons or something to here. You could certainly do that. What I kind of like to do is just take these pieces and pop these on as kind of like rock armor. So you could just find somewhere on the figure to pop these on, something like this. And then I kind of like to take this and kind of put this up here as like a shoulder shield, something like that, and then just give him the giant axe. I mean, that's all you really need. I think that's pretty good. And then you can take this and I'll pop these back on. Like so. Come on now. There we go. And then you can kind of still have most of the vehicle mode here. You won't be able to transform him back into robot mode because he won't have any shins or feet. But I guess if you wanted him to just kind of stand up on these stumps, you could do something. But otherwise, you know, you still have kind of this sled. So like maybe you could have something like this. Let me zoom out here. So you could kind of have like a sled with some armor and a giant hammer. And that's kind of cool. But even just for fun, if we wanted to see how much of this guy we could transform back. If we flip this around, you'll see that this is basically what he would get for legs, which looks a little weird. But we could bring these out to the side. Flip those hands out. Like this. And then we would flip the head out. Fold these back in. And then bring this down. Fold that in. Bring that up. And peg. And again, I kind of find it easier to just pop the hands off for this. Get that connected. I think this one went in already. Yeah, that's in. So technically, you could have most of the robot here if you left the arms on and do something like this. Again, he doesn't have proper feet, but you got most of the robot mode there. So I definitely like this guy a lot more than I thought I was going to. I think the robot modes for the Rock Warriors look great. It's just the weird rock vehicles that seemed kind of silly to me at first, and they still kind of seem silly. But having them in hand and playing with them, I definitely like it more than I thought I was going to. The truck mode's not too bad. I kind of prefer it when you go ahead and pop those back pieces off to kind of make it look more like a pickup truck. I think that works a little bit better aesthetically. And I kind of like forming that giant axe and putting that on the front of the vehicle as like a giant cow catcher. I think that really works. As well as just being a really cool giant axe accessory for any of the other figures in the line. So it's kind of weird to me that most of his body does not come apart. I mean, you can really only remove the arm pieces, these side pieces, the shins, and the foot, and you still have most of the robot mode intact. Also, you can kind of take the shield piece off, but it kind of also compresses nicely as a backpack, doesn't really get in the way. I thought this was a really nice touch. If you want, you can go ahead and leave those pieces on the back of the forearms, but you can also take them off and fill in these little holes in the back of the legs. I think that was a really nice touch. Kind of just makes that seem a little bit more solid. So, yeah, I think they did a pretty nice job with this. As weird as the idea might be, I think it actually works, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I'm ready to see what else we've got in this arena. I know we have one more of these Rock Warriors in the core class. I don't think that one's going to be much of a weaponizer, but I don't know, maybe its weapon can be used by some of the other characters, something like that. But I don't think that one's going to come apart or anything like that. So time will tell. Hopefully that one will come in soon. I've been getting these from Amazon, and they've kind of just been coming in randomly. There's not really a rhyme or reason. You know, they're just kind of randomly being released early from the previous January 2nd start date. So yeah, they're fun. I like them a lot. I love Chase. This guy's a lot of fun too, so I'm really excited for the rest of the line. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks so much for watching.